We are doing the Lord's work today and taking a look at used motorcycle red flags. Now, wintertime is gonna be the best time of year to buy a motorcycle because you can get some good deals, but there's some stuff you gotta look out for, right, Logan?
Definitely. And like a lot of things in life, autism, sexuality, these red flags fall on a spectrum.
Yes, they certainly can. So in today's video, we're talking about red flags that you should walk away from, some that you could proceed with caution, and some that actually could be a tool for you to negotiate. It's actually not so bad. Let's talk about the first one that you're gonna see a lot this coming winter, low speed crashes. We're talking snapped levers, dents on the gas tank, little scuffs here and there. How do you feel about this one, Logan?
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're shopping for like a first or second bike, something that's owned by maybe a less experienced rider, you're definitely gonna find these stuff, you know what I mean? It's very rare to find an absolutely pristine used Ninja 300, Ninja 400. They've seen usually some low speed incidents.
Yeah, they've been ran through a little bit, so to speak. You know, the beginner bikes, like Logan said, they're very subject to beginner riders' kind of follies and silliness. And yeah, I think in the spectrum of red flags, you know, a snapped lever, really no big deal, very easy to replace. You know, some of the stuff you start going up there, like scratched plastics, it might be a little harder. Dented or scratched gas tanks can be kind of a big deal because those are very difficult to fix, and you could even have gas leaks from them as well. But this one, Logan, I'm really feeling a proceed with caution. Sure. I think that's probably where I want to land with it.
Yeah, and a good perspective to have too, like I said, especially if it's like a beginner bike or maybe a second bike, is if someone's already done those little damages, you don't have to feel so bad when it happens to yourself, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I very recently, it was my first low side tip over on my Touareg 660. I went down a powerline trail I probably had no business going down, and now my lever is nice and bent, and you know what? It hurts a brand new bike doing that to it, and if I'd bought a slightly used one, I probably wouldn't feel so bad. But like, whatever, you know, no big deal. So if you're looking for that second bike in the stable, maybe even a track bike, you know, the little blemishes here and there, no big deal. You can probably swap those parts very cheap. Pro tip, go on eBay and look up the part number. You can find them for very cheap as well too. Let's move on to the next one.
So this is gonna be a big one. You find a bike, the deal seems too good to be true, but there's a caveat. No title.
Ooh.
Massive red flag. No title. To a lesser extent, but still kind of red flag, is a lien on the title. You know, you don't want to have to be dealing with transferring a loan or paying off someone else's loan, or if it requires two strangers to go to a bank together, that's a walk away from me.
Yeah, definitely. I think, as Logan said, if there's a loan out on the title, I don't want anything to do with it. You figure that out, you get it paid off. Once you have it free and clear in your hand, then you and I can talk and I can buy the bike from you. No title is a tricky one. If you're buying like a race bike and you really don't care, you just need a bill of sale, you just need it for parts or something like that, that can sometimes work. But for most, like let's say consumer grade motorcyclists, we're not talking advanced enthusiasts that are like stripping these things apart for parts, probably not a sound choice to buy with no title, because then you can't prove that you own the thing. And then the other issue on that is VIN issues, which is related to no title. You don't want to deal with a stolen bike. We just made that whole video about stolen bikes. That's a tricky one.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, if a bike has no title, it's still worth running the VIN. There's different services out there. You pay a little bit, it'll tell you if it's been reported stolen or not. Because yeah, the last thing you want to do is posting a picture of your brand new to you track bike, and even if
someone's like, I recognize that bike.
Exactly. And because motorcycle communities are pretty tight knit, especially in cities with big riding populations, you don't want someone to be knocking on your door with the police department in tow saying, hey, actually someone stole that from me 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then as far as like no title stuff, people will say, oh, you can get a bonded title, this and that.
It's such a pain in the butt.
Yeah, a lot of time the juice isn't worth the squeeze. It's not worth the time, the effort, the money to do that. More often than not, whatever bike you're looking at, another one's gonna come along sooner than later. Never worth really messing with the no title.
Yeah, so funny story, the Ninja 400 endurance race bike that I had a few years ago, I bought that bike free and clear, guy had the title in hand, all good. I then actually lost the title to that bike, and then I ended up selling it to a guy who was okay with it being no title, and then he tried to do the bonded thing for it. It was like a giant pain in the butt. And I actually located the title later and was able to send it. So yeah, title stuff is kind of a big deal. And again, if you're like just an average entry-level motorcycle rider, just get the title, do it the right way. So this one, Logan, I think we're gonna say walk away.
Sir.
Title issues, VIN issues, liens, none of that stuff. Moving on. All right, next up is one that you've probably seen, especially if you've seen our It Came From Facebook series. It's bad grammar or photos. You might think this is pretty, not a big deal. You know, it's like, oh, the guy's got some weird photos, like, should I walk away, whatever. But we were talking about this, and it may not mean that the bike is stolen. It might just mean that it's just like a guy who doesn't use the internet that much, right?
Yeah, there's definitely some old timers out there that own their bikes free and clear, maintain their bikes well, but they just don't know how to make an awesome listing, don't know how to take good photos, and you got to give them a little bit of grace there. But oftentimes, if someone doesn't have the energy or the motivation to, write a thoughtful description of the bike, how it's been maintained, the story of why they're selling it, they might not be that easy to work with as you move forward in the process, right? If they are motivated to sell, they're probably going to put a little bit more effort into making an appealing listing. That's kind of just where my head goes with it.
Yeah. And I think in 2025, Logan, we need to be very aware that we live in a post-literate society with AI and ChatGPT. And so there's two versions of this. One, some people literally may not be very literate. English may not be their first language. We got to cut them some slack. But there's also the slopification of listings as well. If you just see like a random, like generic, like the SB650 was produced in 2002, or it's like
with a bunch of emojis, like peace signs,
and M dashes, and they'll walk away from that because that's someone that just loaded up into ChatGPT to write their motorcycle listing, which is pretty crazy. But for this one, I don't know. I'm feeling like a negotiate situation. I think this isn't like a red flag. You just have to think a little bit about it and just like get a vibe and talk to the owner. So I'm going to place this one in. You can negotiate. Bad grammar photos, not always a deal breaker. And it may be that you find a diamond in the rough,
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah. Moving on.
So the next one definitely has some caveats. It's just leaking fluids, right?
Yeah,
Many fluids in a motorcycle. So many fluids. In a motorcycle, on a motorcycle, depending on who owns it and how you ride it.
There's so many fluids. If you think about this, you and the machine going down the road, you're just a sack of meat filled with fluids, the bike's filled with fluids, leaking so many different fluids, right? Let's talk about the first one, oil. And this one is nuanced as well, right? Because oil, depending on the model you're buying, they may just have, known oil issues, like Triumphs always seep at a certain part of the engine block, and that's just like what they do. It's not a big deal. But flip side, if you had, like me, a Turbo Hayabusa and it was leaking oil at the top near the head gasket, that's because you were pumping boost and the whole thing is all warped at the top there. So oil is kind of a, hit or miss for me.
Yeah, and this is one of those instances where it definitely pays to do your own research. It's like you can't say do your own research anymore without it being mean. But do your own research on the bike you're buying, because a lot of these will have known issues. Like you said, like the Triumph thing. There's always jokes with, if your Harley Davidson ain't leaking oil, doesn't have oil in it. You know what I mean? Having that community knowledge of what oil leaking is sort of acceptable or normal goes a long way in a little bit of peace of mind. There's only so many places coolant can leak. And it's like, that should probably be fixed.
Yeah, and again, do your own research. If you're buying an air-cooled bike and it's leaking coolant,
there you go.
Something's going wrong there. You might want to investigate what's happening. And it could be something as simple as like something just isn't tightened up enough, a hose clamp, oil as well. It could be like a drain bolt that someone just didn't torque all the way. Sometimes it's really simple stuff. So I think leaking fluids is definitely a proceed with caution. Another really common one, Logan, is fork seals. Like this is one that people get really like worried about, but this is a really easy fix. Take it to a suspension guy. He'll swap out the seals in a day. It'll cost you maybe like $100.
Right.
And those are consumable parts too, right? Like this is something that people get really worked up about, but fork seals are not designed to last forever. They literally are holding together with the stanchion and the whatever the hell the fork works. I don't know all the words for it, but that's a consumable part. So over time it will degrade.
Yeah, not a deal breaker, but something to, maybe a negotiating tactic. Knock a couple $100 off the asking price if the seller's willing to work with you.
Yeah, and I think the last one too is if it's leaking gas. That's kind of a rarer one, and there's really not much. You think about the gas tank, the fuel pump, it goes from there to the injectors. Like the gas isn't moving a great distance. It's not like, brake lines that are going back and forth through ABS or whatever. So if it's leaking gas, it's very localized of where it could be leaking. And typically that can only happen if someone, rebuilt the fuel pump and just didn't stitch something up in the right way. It's pretty rare to leak gas. So I think this one, proceed with caution. All right, next up is one I'm sure you've seen in so many listings, and we have to talk about it. It is the ran when parked phenomenon. I see this one all the time, and sometimes it's as simple as like the battery terminals aren't connected all the way, and like then you just fire it right up. And other times it's like, oh, the carb needs to be rebuilt, and the whole thing is, screwed up. What do you think about ran when parked?
I mean, ran when parked, it rubs me the wrong way for sure, but again, there's a lot of gray areas, right? If it's something simple like a battery or whatever, like why didn't they just change the battery? Or at least attempt to jump it or whatever. Other times there's things, I've seen this listing specifically, it'll be like a mom who's like, my son went to prison, I'm sick of his bike sitting around, it ran when parked, I have the title, whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, you might have to have some like sort of a moral conversation with yourself about you want to buy some whatever.
Yeah,
But there are definitely certain instances when maybe it's something very simple and the person selling, for whatever reason, doesn't have the mechanical know-how to get it running. But I feel like most of the time, if it ran when parked, shouldn't be that hard to get it running again.
Totally, yeah. Unless it was parked like 5 years ago, then you're dealing with a whole bunch of other issues, right? Because the worst thing you can do for a motorcycle is to just leave it in a corner and never turn it on ever again. You know, the components start to kind of wither away, you're not moving fluids through everything, like, you know,
seals dry out.
The seals dry out. I think it's really important if you're gonna leave a bike parked, like you gotta turn it on every once in a while and just like go around the block with it. Just get the things moving, because you can have compounding effects from the thing being parked for so long. And this is something that we talked about pre-production as well too, is like, you know, a lot of these issues are gonna come together, right? And it may be that, you know, if you have, you know, a broken lever, oh, that's a proceed with caution. If you, however, have a broken lever, ran when parked, bad photos, then it's like, well, maybe it's walk away, you know, like it starts to compound.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so ran when parked on its own, I think is a proceed with caution. What do you think? Or is it more to walk away or negotiate? What do you think?
I'd say in a majority of circumstances, it's walk away.
Oh, okay.
I think if you're looking for a project bike, that's an entirely different video.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, again, we're talking about a higher level enthusiast looking for a project bike. We're today looking at more like an average motorcycle, you know, enjoyer and purchaser. Moving on.
We all love a good deal. You and I both talk about it all the time. The great deals we got on Marketplace over the weekend on different household goods or whatever.
He's big into furniture right now.
Big into furniture. If you got any vintage stuff, drop me a comment. But anyway, sometimes a good deal can be too good of a deal. Because what's the expression? Yeah, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Yeah. And so that, of course, is a suspiciously low price. If someone's trying to sell you an R6 for $1,500, there's either something wrong with it or it's stolen. Yeah. I would say. Most of the time, it's stolen. And we were talking about factors combining. Suspiciously low prices are almost always combined with no one photo or no title, or the listing has like 6 words in it, and you're like, what is this, you know? And you get there and it's like a pocket bike R6. And you're like, actually, all right, I'll take it, that's fine. I think if it's like 10% of what the value is supposed to be, you're like, this is a scam, you know? And that's the thing. It might not even be that they're trying to sell you a stolen bike. It may be like another weird, elaborate scam of some other description. You know, they get to talking to you, and then they're like, hey, like, can you send, you know, this money to here, and let's do this, and oh, send it to this email. And then you're like, you're not even talking about a bike anymore. All of a sudden, you're a mark, you know? You're just a mark for a scam. But what can happen as well is, there are times where people just really need to offload a motorcycle. This happened to me when my parts Tona, I needed to sell it. I just could not sell the thing. I listed it for like $100, I think, and then I got like a billion messages because people were like, holy shit, this thing's $100. And it wasn't that it was suspicious, I really just needed it gone. I was like, I don't need this thing in my life anymore, please just get it out of here. So, suspiciously low price, I don't know, is it walk away or proceed with caution? I think it's proceed with caution, because there are certainly instances of maybe it is just a really good deal, or someone's in a hurry, you see it shipping off to the military or going away to college or moving cross country. Sometimes people do just need to get rid of bikes. You're saying that stuff and my scam like alarm bells are ringing. You know, someone's like, I'm moving overseas. I'm like, I don't know, dude. You know, but it does happen. It does happen. Don't send them any money. Until you have title and bike, don't meet them at a public place. Parking lot of a police station is a good one. Try to scam me there. I've always meet at like the parking lot of like an HEB or something. Yeah. I mean, I trust HEB more than cops. I'll say it. I'm brave. Yeah. So where are you gonna put it? I'll let you. I think we'll do walk away. Walk away? Yeah. Because my caveats also sounded like scams. They did. Yeah. I think super suspicious low prices. Walk away. Yeah. You know, we hear a lot here in America that Europeans just have the best of everything, and after sampling this Honda Hornet CB750, I can't help but agree. What other cool bikes they got over there that we don't get? Come on, this thing is amazing, and it's finally made its way here in North America, and it is a giveaway bike on yamanoob.co. I was really pumped to get this machine. It features the 755cc parallel twin from Honda. It's a really fun, playful motor, and the best thing I can say about it is that it feels positively un-Honda-like.
Head to the link down below on yammynoob.co. Become a member today to join and get your chances locked and loaded, ready to win this Honda Hornet CB750. All right, next up, we talked about consumables. We talked about dents and scratches and things. This is a wear item that can tell you a lot about the motorcycle's life. It's roasted tires. Now, this is one, Logan, that I think there is some nuance here.
Certainly,
because if you look at a tire and you just see the wear pattern is like, let's say it's a Super Corsa SP, it's a nice V-shaped tire, and the top of it is just squared off, and the sides, have like, 3-mile wide chicken strips. That tells me that it was a highway warrior kind of bike. The guy just rode it in a straight line. Doesn't necessarily mean abuse. It might just be that he just enjoyed going straight with the bike.
Yeah, or commuted and bought the wrong tire.
Or he bought like a Panigale to commute with, and it's like, well, that's a bit silly. Now, I think it starts turning into a red flag if you see signs of abuse. If you see a motorcycle that the center of it is like down to the cords, and then there's nothing else on the sides, you're like, well, lots of burnouts, pinging off the limiter.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's not just the consumable, it's the fact that it was abused. But I think there's also a case to be made for the track day boogers, right? What do you think about those?
Yeah, I mean, if the tires got wear, but it shows that they're like a good rider and like invested in like good riding, they probably took care of their bikes too, and they'd also be quick to say, hey, it probably needs a new set of tires come spring. If they're just selling it like as is with no information as to how the bike was used, you definitely have to consider some other options of how the bike was used. But I think healthy wear is a good thing, if the bike was used as it was intended, because again, you don't want a bike that's just sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah, so this one, I want to put it more in like the kind of negotiate
I think it's
category.
Negotiate for sure.
Because like you can knock off a few $100 on the price, and it's not inherently bad. Don't let it scare you. It doesn't mean the bike's, been beaten up. And like Logan said, it may actually be a good thing, because typically guys who run their bikes on track and really enjoy them, they're high-level enthusiasts. They're taking care of their machines, doing oil changes, brakes, and like really taking care of it. So I think it's a negotiate for sure.
So this next one is definitely good advice for a newer rider, maybe someone just kind of cutting their teeth with motorcycling, and that's excessive mods, specifically in regards to like kind of big value things like new plastics. To a novice rider, someone buying maybe their second bike, you might think, oh, they have all these cool accessories that I maybe would have bought myself. But I think it tells you a lot about the owner and how they use their bike, right?
Totally, yeah. This is something we've seen a lot on the Facebook Marketplace listings. I remember one, it was a Yamaha R3 that the photos were really hard to tell, and the guy was like, oh, it cracks necks everywhere it goes, and like it's got all these blacked out plastics and like all these levers and rear guards. And I'm like, why does it have so much on it? Like, why is there so, like, and that to me is like, it could have been crashed, it could have been, poorly modified. Because a lot of the times, not to throw shade, but like a lot of these like Farkle type of mods, they're installed by guys who have no idea what they're doing. They're like poorly fit and like, and they're eBay parts and stuff. I'm like, that to me tells me a bike that lived kind of a hard life probably.
Yeah, and keeping in mind too is like adding accessories and modifications don't add value, right? Like you're never going to recoup that money. And that's another issue with excessively modified bikes, is sometimes they are asking way more than they should, because like, oh, it's got a slip-on. It's like, yeah, if you bought that slip-on for $600, I'm not paying an extra $600 for this used bike.
Yeah, and then on top of that too, what can happen is if you modify the bike too much, it just becomes impossible to sell. Like there's a guy on our Discord server that has like the Louis Vuitton wrap Desert X treatment. I think that's fun and it's cool, but I'm sure he's thinking, it's like, oh, if I ever want to sell it, like, I'm probably gonna have to remove that wrap, because it tells a strange story of the bike, and that's why we often say on the channel, like, do a couple small tasteful mods, because you never know if you want to sell the bike or get rid of it or whatever, and it's just easier to sell. So yeah, I think probably proceed with caution. All right, Logan, imagine this. You go and check out this amazing Facebook Marketplace bike in person. You've brought cash, the guy lets you test ride it. You go around the block, you go to reach for the front brakes, nothing happens. You're careening to a stop, you're scared out of your mind, you say, this bike is trash, I'm not gonna buy it.
You're doing the Flintstones.
You're doing the Flintstones, you jump off of it, all that good stuff. We're talking sloppy brakes. If you go and check out a motorcycle and the braking components are sloppy and or not working, you might be surprised to think of it, but I don't think this is that bad.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about all the parts on a motorcycle, like brakes are relatively simple, right?
They're very straightforward.
It's like just a purely, obviously you have ABS or whatever, but otherwise a purely mechanical thing. You just replace the parts.
So don't be afraid of the braking system either feeling sloppy or not working correctly, because as Logan said, there's not many parts to it, and it could be something as simple as like it just needs to be flushed, and it just needs to have some air bubbles pulled out, and then new fluids, and just have it be working correctly. So if you see the common one where it has like the little, I call it the pea cup sample, the one at the top. If that's like, you know, like brown, you're like, oh, all I gotta do is just like flush it. And as Logan said, there's not that many components. So if the brake line is leaking somewhere, you can just get new brake lines. Those are like $50. You can then, if you want to, do an ABS delete, go straight to the line. New master cylinders you can find on eBay for like $50. You know, I think the big one is if you're buying a high-powered sport bike and it's got really nice calipers, and those calipers are somehow compromised, that can be a big, you know, pricey item. If like there's a bolt missing in like the fork to the caliper, or if like that thread is messed up, that could be expensive if you don't want to rethread it. So sloppy brakes can seem like a bad situation. You're like, oh my God, this bike doesn't stop. I definitely think it's worth it to get it fixed before you own it.
Sure.
But I don't know, to me it's a negotiate. I don't think it's that bad.
Yeah, I think it's negotiate, just as long as you know what you're getting into and have, you know, a very basic understanding of what would need to be fixed. You know?
Yeah, this is perhaps not for the faint of heart, depending on what's wrong with it, because this is a component that you absolutely want to make sure you know what you're doing when you maintain it, because you got to stop the motorcycle, right? You don't want to, you know, swap out the pads, forget to put the bolts back in, and then you go out, pinch it, and then the whole thing falls apart.
So we already talked about like the initial interpretation of the listing, bad photos, bad grammar, AI slop, all that junk. But once you get past that stage, you're actually talking to the seller a little bit, there's definitely some more red flags. A big one is bad communication. Again, you have to give people a little bit of grace, like if it's an older gentleman or maybe someone that's not terminally online, or they are terminally online, they have brain rot. They might not be the most articulate in communication, but also sometimes you just got to hit someone with a phone call. Phone call goes a long way, especially to the younger audience. You know, you maybe have a panic attack every time you have to talk on the phone. A phone call makes everything
terrified them.
A phone call makes everything easier a lot of the time.
So much easier, yeah.
But there can also be some more serious red flags in your communication when buying a motorcycle. If they're very dodgy or overly urgent, or they're like, weird payment stuff, like, oh, I need you to send me like a bank transfer of like a deposit, whatever. Especially if it's like shipping a $20,000 super bike from across the country, that's obviously a far more advanced thing. But if you're buying a $6,000 intermediate bike from a guy down the street, you don't need to be sending bank transfers or whatever.
No.
So there's definitely some flags you need to be weary of, and and having some skepticism usually is helpful. You know, you don't want to be scammed, or even beyond scams, the bike could just suck, and they're trying to get the deal done and over with before you become privy to their bike sucking.
Yes, and then the other one too is like if they're trying to like rush you to sell it or whatever, to buy it, that usually to me is like it's either stolen or something's up with it, like, or it could be someone who's like really in a bind and needs the money. I mean, but you just don't want to deal with someone like that. Like I prefer buying from someone who, you know, for lack of a better term, is coming from a place of abundance. It's just like, you know, oh, I got this bike, you come by, check it out, you know, sell it. Just somebody who's operating at a more like easygoing level. I don't want to deal with someone who's like, I gotta sell this bike so I can make rent this month. I'm like, I don't, look, that's your personal problems. I'm sorry, but like you got to sort that out, you know? Yeah,
especially if it's a good bike priced fairly, the seller should know if this person doesn't want to buy it, someone else will. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
If they're in a rush, it's like something doesn't add up, because otherwise the free market will, everything will align in the free market if the price meets the demand.
Look at him. Wow. The 4 years of economics that I could have just summed up in one beautiful sentence. There you go. The study of scarce resources, which apparently are R6s nowadays.
Yep, absolutely.
So where does this one going to fall?
This is definitely a walk away for sure.
I think so. Yeah. I think if someone's just behaving weird, acting weird, just,
Yeah, I've never wanted a bike so bad to deal with that.
No, me either. Moving on. Okay, so we talked about levers snapping or small dents here and there. Let's talk about more serious crash damage. Now, it's not that if something has had serious crash damage, you must always walk away from it. You could be buying a project bike, you could be knowing what you're getting into, and sometimes a serious crash doesn't really mean that the bike is totally messed up either. What can happen though is a serious crash can cause other weird knock-on effects with the motorcycle, right? So I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say you crashed your bike on track and you bent the subframe, right? You're like, oh, okay, just put on a new subframe. But when you crashed, you didn't realize that the wheel got slightly bent and now there's a weird vibration happening, right? And the guy's like, oh, the wheel just needs to be rebalanced. It's no big deal. You'll never get that vibration to go away, you know? So sometimes with the bike that's been seriously crashed, there are issues that may come up later that were related to it that you thought you fixed, but are actually not fixed. So that's why, in general, it's usually best to walk away from any serious crashes. Can you think of any situation where you would maybe not, or you could negotiate, or?
I don't know about everybody, but like I buy bikes to ride them. I don't like projects.
That's
I don't
crazy
like
to me.
working.
Oh,
I know. Well, no, I mean, people love project bikes. People love like having something to fix. It's like the girl that dates the scumbag. She wants to fix him. She wants to clean him up, make him a good guy. A lot of guys are like that with their motorcycles. I am not. I want it to work. I don't want to mess with it. That's why I ride a Honda.
You know, it reminds me of people who also like adopt a lot of pets. You know, like people have like 7 or 8 dogs, and you're like, oh my god, like this is a disaster in your house.
Savior mentality.
Yeah. So I'm with you. Like I like having like 2 or 3 bikes that just work and I own turnkey. I don't want to have 19 bikes that like 6 of them don't run and I just own them, because like that's just detritus in my life. You know, I don't want that. So
yeah, it's definitely that's serious damage. Walk away for sure.
Yeah, bent frames, bent forks. Like I said, it could have other issues. Just walk away. Yeah. And if you find out at any point that the seller is not telling you about a serious crash it had or whatever, or has a rebuilt title, like these are all like just walk away. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. So moving on.
So this one's sort of interesting too, similar to suspiciously low price, suspiciously low miles. Like you might think a motorcycle with low miles, it's held more of its value, whatever. But it's usually a red flag. Bikes, people buy bikes to ride them, right?
Yeah.
And like we discussed, a bike sitting around a lot can develop problems. It just doesn't compute to me. Like, how would you have like a 5-year-old bike that has 500 miles on it?
Yeah, I don't know how that works. And also, to me, it's like, I'd much rather see the bike being used than it just sitting there. And I don't really make heads or tails of this one.
And because I think too, if it has suspiciously low miles, they're obviously not riding it. If they're not riding it, they're definitely not maintaining it. So it's like, even if a bike has 2,000 miles, but it's 10 years old, that's pretty low. And it's like, what, they changed the oil once, if that, in the time they've owned it? Like that just, stuff like that starts, you know, raising some flags in my mind.
Yeah, and to me, like, this is maybe a bit of a hot take, but I actually think you'll agree with me here. I'd rather buy a bike that's like 2 or 3 years old with 10,000 miles than a bike that's 15 years old with 2,000 miles.
Yeah.
Because I would prefer that someone has been using it and maintaining it and keep up with it regularly the way it was designed to be used, rather than it sitting for months on end and like, who knows how this has been maintained. It's not always a good thing that it has low mileage.
Definitely
Sometimes
not,
you're like, actually that's bad. Especially for like weirder oddball bikes. Like you see a lot of this with like MV Agusas or Ducatis where it's like, oh, like it only has like 600 miles. I'm like, those need to be ran. You can't just let that sit there, you know, unless you really know what you're doing. It could also be, this is kind of a rarer case, but like, you know, maybe they swapped the odometer or did some like skeezy stuff, like where they swapped it. Because like some types of models, for example, like an FC6 or a Goldwing, there's no way it only has 1,000 miles after like 10 years. Because those are designed to be ridden a lot. And I'm like, there's no way, you know?
Absolutely.
And that could be, you know, maybe you talk to the seller and you figure it out. You're kind of like, you know, oh, what's the story? But most of the times I'm like, eh.
Yeah. I mean, I think people maybe weigh mileage a little bit too heavily in general when buying motorcycles.
Totally.
It's like motorcycles can run a long time. You just don't see them with high mileage because they're usually crashed or just not ridden enough. You know what I mean? So I feel like, mileage is usually not that much of a consideration, and suspiciously low miles, it's just way too far the other direction.
And motorcycles to me are emblematic of like here for a good time, not a long time. You know, like it's very rare that bikes make it above even like 50,000 miles, you know?
Definitely. But they could, a lot of them could.
Easy, easily. So it's not that bad, but this one, where are you thinking? Proceed with caution, walk away?
I mean, I want to say walk away, but I'm also way more risk averse, I think, than a lot of people.
Yeah.
Proceed with caution, cut it in the middle.
I'm way more risk loving. I'm like, I don't care, like it'll be fine. I think proceed with caution, because it could be fine, right? But you know, it depends on the model, depends on what's going on with it. Yeah.
Do your own research.
Don't tell people to do that. Last but certainly not least for today's video is a messed up chain. Rusted out, bent in a bunch of places, sprockets looking like a, you know, just a smooth dinner plate rather than actual teeth. What do you think about a messed up chain?
Chains are super simple to maintain, pretty simple to replace, even the sprockets too. And I think if the chain, it's like what they say, if you go to a restaurant and the bathroom is dirty, what does the kitchen look like? You know what I mean? If you're buying if you're buying a used bike and the chain is messed up, what does the engine internals look like? You know what I mean? It chain's incredibly easy to clean, maintain, and it's right out there in the open for everybody to see.
Yeah.
So if that's not being taken care of, what can you say about the rest of the bike?
So there's a funny story on that. There was a video one time, or it must have been a photo or something, where the chain on the bike was pretty rusted and messed up. And then the sprocket like literally had like no teeth on it or whatever. And it was like customer states clutch is slipping.
Yeah,
you know?
I've seen that.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, like Logan said, it's very apparent when you have chain issues. And if you actually ride your bike, you would just look and be like, oh, I gotta swap the chain. And then within like maybe 2-3 weeks, you would have a new chain and sprocket set up and installed. And usually bad chain maintenance is a compounding factor of some of these other things, right? Like rusted bad chain means it was parked outside, it's probably leaking fluids, the plastics are probably messed up. Like it's pretty rare to find a bike that's like, wow, it's perfect, except the chain. It's like, if that wasn't maintained, because it's the easiest thing to maintain, then nothing else was maintained, you know? So to me, it might be kind of brutal, but I think a messed up chain is pretty much a walk away, because it's like, the bike has probably other issues.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think I articulated it the best I could with my restaurant analogy.
That is true,
So I'm gonna say, I agree with walk away.
Wow, walk away, yeah, messed up chain, don't even mess with it. So we ended up with most of these red flags are walkaways. It's just, you're gonna encounter more headaches down the road. And if you just spend a little bit more, I talk about this all the time with bikes, where it's like, do not focus on like an absolute lowest possible, but literally just spend like even like 20% more sometimes. You get like way more bike for the money. And there's so many nice bikes out there.
Yeah, spend a little bit more and wait a little bit longer. You know what I mean?
Patience.
If there's one bike you like, and you think it's a great deal, but it has one of these red flags,
it's not worth it.
Give it a couple weeks. Another one that's just as nice without the red flag will likely come up.
Yeah, I think of buying motorcycles much like getting tattoos, where it's like, if you think it's a great idea, why don't you just wait a week? And like, you know, see what you think. And like, do you still really want it? Okay, then maybe you get it. No, maybe wait a couple of months and see if you really want it. I have saved myself from buying many bikes by literally just like waiting. And then I realized, I'm like, I actually don't want that at all. Like, how many bikes have I talked to you about this year? I'm like, I'm gonna get that, and then I never do.
Probably 6 or 8.
Yeah. Hey, my finances are happy. That's good. Yeah, you gotta know what you want. So boys, that's our rankings of used motorcycle red flags. If you have any that you wanna see us talk about, leave us a comment down below. Maybe make a part 2, or if you have any that we didn't mention, leave a comment down below. Thanks so much for checking out today's video. We appreciate it. We will catch you in the next one. See you later.